Lucy Miller lived in a small, run-down apartment on the edge of Chicago. Her life was not easy, but she never let that stop her from dreaming. At just 10 years old, Lucy already knew what it meant to work hard and make do with very little. Her father cleaned offices during the day and washed dishes at a diner late into the night. Her mother spent hours hunched over a sewing machine, stitching clothes for neighbors who paid her barely enough to cover the thread and electricity. Despite their struggles, Lucy's parents always told her that things would get better someday. They reminded her to stay hopeful, even when hope felt far away. Every morning, Lucy walked to school along the same cracked sidewalks lined with faded storefronts. She passed the bakery where the smell of fresh bread wafted through the air, though she could only afford to look through its windows. She waved hello to Mr. Carter, the elderly man who sat outside the hardware store feeding pigeons, and smiled politely at Mrs. Dawson, the social worker who often stopped by her building to check on families like hers. Life moved slowly in this part of town, but Lucy found ways to keep herself busy. She loved reading books borrowed from the library and drawing pictures in the margins of old notebooks. But there was one thing missing: a spark, something special that made her feel alive. One chilly autumn afternoon, as Lucy walked home from school, she noticed something unusual sitting near the entrance of a thrift store. It was an old violin case, slightly battered and covered in dust. The shopkeeper, a wiry man with glasses perched on the tip of his nose, stood nearby arranging items on a rack. He caught Lucy staring at the case and called out to her, "Hey kid, you want that? It's been sitting here forever. Nobody buys violins anymore." Lucy hesitated. She had never touched a musical instrument before, let alone played one. Still, curiosity got the better of her. She stepped closer, running her fingers over the worn leather surface of the case. "Can I really have it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sure," the shopkeeper shrugged. "It's no good to me. Take it if you want." Carefully, Lucy picked up the case and opened it. Inside lay a violin, its wood scratched and faded, strings loose and frayed. It didn't look like much, but to Lucy it seemed magical. She ran her fingers lightly across the strings, producing a soft, uneven sound. It wasn't perfect, but it was music, and for the first time in a long while, Lucy felt excited about something. When she got home, Lucy showed the violin to her parents. Her mother raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "What are you going to do with that, sweetheart? We can't afford lessons." "I'll figure it out," Lucy replied, surprising even herself with how determined she sounded. Her father gave her a weary smile. "Well, if it makes you happy, then go ahead. Just don't expect miracles." That evening, after finishing her homework, Lucy sat cross-legged on the floor of their tiny living room and began experimenting with the violin. She plucked at the strings, trying to mimic the melodies she heard in her head. Some notes came out sharp and jarring, while others were so faint they barely registered. Frustrated but unwilling to give up, Lucy turned to the internet. Using the family's ancient laptop, she searched for videos showing how to play the violin. There were countless tutorials available, some featuring professional musicians and others created by amateurs like her. Lucy watched them all, pausing frequently to try out what she saw. Her first attempts were clumsy and awkward. Holding the bow correctly felt unnatural, and pressing down on the strings hurt her fingertips. But Lucy refused to quit. Every mistake became a lesson, every wrong note a step toward improvement. By the end of the week, she managed to produce a simple tune, a nursery rhyme she remembered from kindergarten. When her younger brother laughed and clapped his hands, Lucy grinned with pride. For the first time in ages, she felt like she had accomplished something truly remarkable. Word of Lucy's newfound hobby spread quickly among her neighbors. One Saturday morning, as she practiced near the park, an elderly man approached her. His name was Harold, and he introduced himself as a retired music teacher. Harold had spotted Lucy earlier that week, fumbling with the violin, and decided to see if she needed help. "You've got potential," he said kindly, adjusting his glasses. "But you're holding the bow all wrong." Lucy blushed, embarrassed by her lack of skill. I'm just learning, she admitted. I don't have anyone to teach me. Harold chuckled. Well, maybe I can help with that. I used to conduct the local youth orchestra back in the day. If you'd like, I can show you a few tricks. At first, Lucy was hesitant. She didn't know Harold well and wasn't sure if she could trust him. But there was something gentle and encouraging about the way he spoke. Reluctantly, she agreed to meet him the following weekend. From then on, every Saturday morning became a lesson. Harold taught Lucy everything from proper posture to finger placement, patiently guiding her through each challenge. He brought sheet, music written in large, clear notes, and encouraged her to practice scales until they flowed smoothly. Slowly but surely, Lucy's confidence grew. As weeks turned into months, Lucy's playing improved dramatically. What once sounded like random squeaks and scratches now resembled actual music. Neighbors began stopping by the park to listen, drawn by the sweet melodic strains drifting through the air. Even Mrs. Dawson, the social worker, paused one afternoon to compliment Lucy on her progress. "You're quite talented," she remarked. "Have you ever thought about performing?" The idea startled Lucy. Performing? In front of people? She shook her head vigorously. "No way. I'm not good enough for that." But deep down, a seed of possibility took root. Could she really perform someday? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. For now, though, Lucy focused on mastering the basics, grateful for Harold's guidance and the joy the violin brought to her life. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning, and the best was yet to come. Lucy's Saturdays quickly became the highlight of her week. Each morning she would wake up early, pack a small snack, and head to the park where Harold waited for her on the same bench near the fountain. The weather didn't matter, whether it was sunny, rainy, or chilly. Lucy showed up with her violin tucked safely under her arm. She loved how patient Harold was, always ready to explain things in a way that made sense. He never scolded her when she made mistakes. Instead, he encouraged her to try again. One Saturday, as they worked on a new piece, Harold leaned back on the bench and studied Lucy thoughtfully. "You know," he said after a moment, "you're doing really well. Better than most kids I've taught." Lucy blushed at the compliment but shook her head. "I still mess up all the time. My fingers get tangled and sometimes I can't even remember the notes." Harold chuckled softly. "That's part of learning. Even the greatest musicians make mistakes. What matters is how you handle them. You don't give up, and that's what makes you special." His words stayed with Lucy long after their lesson ended. For the first time, she started to believe that maybe she wasn't so bad after all. Maybe, just maybe, she could actually become good at playing the violin. This newfound confidence pushed her to practice even harder. Every evening after finishing her homework and helping her mother fold laundry, Lucy would sit by the window and play. Sometimes her younger brother joined her, tapping his feet to the rhythm. Other times her father paused in the doorway, listening, quietly before heading off to his second job. As the weeks went by, Lucy noticed changes in herself. She felt braver, more determined. Music gave her something to look forward to, a reason to keep going even when life felt tough. Her grades improved because she learned to focus better. Her teachers commented on how much happier and more engaged she seemed in class. But despite these positive changes, Lucy still kept her violin lessons a secret from most of her classmates. She worried they might laugh at her or tease her for trying to learn something so different. Then one day, everything changed. It was a crisp spring afternoon, and Lucy decided to practice outside the apartment building instead of inside. She figured the fresh air might help clear her mind. As she played, a small crowd began to gather. First a few curious children, then some adults walking their dogs. Before she knew it, a dozen people had stopped to listen. Most smiled and nodded along to the music, while a couple clapped quietly when she finished a song. Among the listeners was Mrs. Peterson, the principal of Lucy's school. Lucy recognized her immediately and froze mid-note, suddenly self-conscious. She lowered her violin and mumbled a quick apology. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother anyone." Mrs. Peterson laughed kindly. "Bother us? You're amazing. Where did you learn to play like that?" Lucy hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Finally, she admitted, "I'm teaching myself. Well, mostly. A friend helps me sometimes." "Well, whoever this friend is, they're doing a wonderful job," Mrs. Peterson said warmly. "Listen, we have a talent show coming up next month. Have you ever thought about performing?" The suggestion caught Lucy completely off guard. Perform at school? In front of everyone? Her stomach churned at the mere idea. "No, I couldn't," she stammered. "I'm not good enough." Mrs. Peterson tilted her head, studying Lucy carefully. "Why do you say that?" "From what I heard, today you're incredibly talented. Don't let fear hold you back. Think about it, okay?" Though Lucy promised to consider it, the thought of performing terrified her. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she replayed Mrs. Peterson's words over and over in her mind. Was she really talented? Could she stand on stage and play in front of her classmates? The idea seemed impossible, yet a tiny part of her wondered what it might feel like to share her music with others. The next day, Lucy mentioned the talent show to Harold during their lesson. To her surprise, he didn't dismiss the idea. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully. "It's a big step, but it could be good for you. Performing isn't just about showing off, it's about connecting with people through your music. If you're serious about the violin, this could be a great opportunity." "But what if I mess up?" Lucy asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What if everyone laughs at me?" Harold placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Everyone gets nervous before a performance, even professionals. The trick is to focus on the music, not the audience. Remember why you started playing in, the first place, not to impress anyone, but because it makes you happy." His advice stuck with Lucy. Over the next few days, she wrestled with doubt and fear, weighing the pros and cons of signing up for the talent show. Eventually, she realized that she didn't want to let fear control her. She wanted to prove to herself that she could do this, to take a risk and see where it led. When the sign-up sheet appeared on the bulletin board at school, Lucy hesitated only briefly before writing her name down. Her heart raced as she handed the paper to Mrs. Peterson, who smiled brightly. "I'm so glad you decided to join us, Lucy. You won't regret it." Preparing for the talent show turned out to be harder than Lucy expected. She practiced every chance she got, often staying up late into the night. Harold helped her choose a piece, a simple but beautiful melody called Amazing Grace. He assured her that its slow, steady rhythm would suit her skill level perfectly. Still, no matter how many times she played it, Lucy couldn't shake the nerves gnawing at her stomach. Her family noticed the change in her routine and rallied around her. Her mother stayed up late sewing a new dress for the occasion, using fabric scraps donated by a neighbor. Her father rearranged his schedule to attend the performance, promising not to miss it for anything. Even her younger brother pitched in, cheering her on whenever she felt discouraged. On the morning of the talent show, Lucy woke up feeling a mix of excitement and dread. She dressed carefully in the dress her mother had made, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. When she arrived at school, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Students rushed around, adjusting microphones and testing lights. Backstage, Lucy clutched, her violin tightly, her palms sweaty and her knees weak. "You'll do great," whispered Mrs. Peterson, squeezing her shoulder. "Just breathe and let the music guide you." When it was finally her turn, Lucy stepped onto the stage, blinking against the bright lights. The room fell silent as she raised her violin and drew the bow across the strings. At first, her hands trembled, but as the familiar notes filled the air, she began to relax. The music flowed through her, carrying her worries away. By the end of the piece, tears glistened in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she had done it. She had faced her fears and shared her passion with the world. The applause that followed was deafening. Teachers and students alike rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Lucy stood frozen for a moment, stunned by the reaction. Then slowly, a smile spread across her face. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen and celebrated for who she was. Afterward, Mrs. Peterson approached her with a proud grin. "I told you, didn't I? You were incredible. Now there's something else I need to talk to you about. Lucy tilted her head curiously, wondering what could possibly come next. Whatever it was, she felt ready to face it. After all, if she could conquer her fear of performing, what else might she achieve? After the talent show, Lucy's life began to change in ways she never imagined. The applause from her classmates still echoed in her mind days later. People who had barely noticed her before now greeted her with smiles and compliments. Some even asked if she would perform again. Lucy felt a mix of pride and disbelief. She had always been the quiet girl in the corner, the one who blended into the background. But now for the first time she stood out, and it felt strange but wonderful. Mrs. Peterson kept her promise to talk to Lucy about something important. A few days after the talent show, she called Lucy into her office during lunch break. The Beaubourg principal's room was cozy, with shelves lined with books and framed photos of past students. Mrs. Peterson gestured for Lucy to sit down and handed her a glass of water. "How are you feeling?" she asked kindly. "Okay, I guess," Lucy replied, though her cheeks flushed pink. She wasn't used to being the center of attention even in a small way like this. Mrs. Peterson smiled. "You should be proud of yourself. Your performance was beautiful. It touched everyone who heard it." Lucy looked down at her hands, unsure how to respond. "Thank you," she murmured softly. "There's more," Mrs. Peterson continued. "The city is hosting a young musicians competition next month. It's open to kids your age from all over Chicago. I think you'd be perfect for it." Lucy's eyes widened in shock. "Me? For a citywide competition?" "Yes, you," Mrs. Peterson said firmly. "Why not? You have talent, determination, and heart. Those are the things that matter most." Though, flattered, Lucy felt panic rising in her chest. Competing against other musicians sounded impossible. What if she embarrassed herself? What if she couldn't keep up? "I don't know," she began hesitantly. Mrs. Peterson leaned forward, her expression serious. "I'm not saying it will be easy. There will be challenges, lots of them. But think about it. Wouldn't it be amazing to share your music with an even bigger audience, to show people what you're capable of?" Lucy didn't answer right away. She thought about Harold's lessons, the late nights practicing by the window, and the joy she felt every time she played. If she could perform in front of her entire school, maybe she could handle something bigger too. Still, the idea of competing scared her. That evening, Lucy shared the news with her family. Her father listened quietly while sipping his coffee, his brow furrowed in thought. Her mother paused mid-stitch, her needle hovering over the fabric. "A citywide competition?" her mother repeated, sounding both excited and worried. "That's wonderful, sweetheart, but can we afford it? You'll need proper clothes, transportation, maybe even new strings for your violin." Lucy hadn't considered those details. Her heart sank as reality hit her. Even if she wanted to enter the competition, their financial situation made it seem impossible. Seeing the disappointment on her face, her father spoke up. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. "If this is what you want, we'll find a way." The next day, Lucy told Harold about the competition. He listened intently, nodding as she explained her concerns. When she finished, he smiled reassuringly. "This is a big opportunity, Lucy. Don't let fear or money stop you. Let's focus on the music first. We'll worry about the rest later." Over the following weeks, Lucy threw herself into preparation. Harold helped her choose a challenging yet beautiful piece, a solo version of The Lark Ascending. It required precision, emotion, and stamina, but Harold believed Lucy could master it. They worked tirelessly, breaking the song into smaller sections and practicing each part until it flowed smoothly. Lucy spent hours at home perfecting the melody, often staying up late into the night despite her tired eyes. As the competition drew closer, Lucy faced another obstacle: her violin. The old instrument she had found at the thrift store was showing its age. Its strings snapped frequently, and no matter how much she tuned it, the sound remained dull and uneven. One afternoon, while practicing in the park, Harold noticed her frustration. "Your violin isn't doing justice to your talent," he said gently. "You deserve better." "I know," Lucy admitted, sighing heavily, "but we can't afford a new one." Harold frowned, deep in thought. Later that week, he mentioned Lucy's situation to Emily Dawson, the social worker who occasionally visited Lucy's neighborhood. Emily had always been kind and attentive, often organizing fundraisers for families in need. When Harold told her about Lucy's dream of entering the competition, Emily immediately sprang into action. She arranged a community event at the local recreation center, inviting neighbors and nearby businesses to contribute. Flyers were posted around the area, and word spread quickly. On the day of the fundraiser, Lucy was stunned to see so many familiar faces gathered to support her. Mr. Carter, the elderly man who fed pigeons outside the hardware store, donated a jar of coins he had saved. Mrs. Dawson baked dozens of cookies to sell. Even the bakery owner, whose windows Lucy often admired, chipped in with a generous check. At the end of the event, Emily presented Lucy with an envelope containing the funds raised. Inside was enough money to cover travel expenses, new strings, and even a second-hand but high-quality violin donated by a local music shop. Tears filled Lucy's mother, hugged her tightly, whispering, "You've earned this, sweetheart. Make us proud." With her new violin in hand, Lucy practiced harder than ever. The instrument responded beautifully to her touch, producing rich, resonant tones that filled the room. Each note seemed to carry her closer to the competition stage. Yet, as the date approached, her nerves returned. What if she forgot the music? What if the judges didn't like her performance? On the morning of the competition, Lucy woke up early, her stomach fluttering with anxiety. Her mother helped her dress in a simple yet elegant outfit sewn from fabric, donated by neighbors. Her father gave her a pep talk before leaving for work. "Remember why you started playing," he reminded her. "Not for awards or applause, but because it makes you happy. Just play from your heart." When they arrived at the auditorium, Lucy was overwhelmed by the size of the venue. Rows of chairs stretched across the hall, and bright lights illuminated the stage. Backstage, other contestants warmed up, their instruments filling the air with a symphony of sounds. Some competitors looked confident, while others appeared just as nervous as Lucy. She clutched her violin tightly, trying to steady her breathing. Harold found her moments before she was called to perform. "You've got this," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Focus on the music, not the crowd. Play for yourself, not for anyone else." Taking a deep breath, Lucy nodded. When her name was announced, she stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding. The spotlight blinded her momentarily, but as she raised her violin and began to play, everything else faded away. The notes poured out effortlessly, carrying her emotions with them. She thought of her family's sacrifices, Harold's guidance, and the kindness of her community. By the final chord, tears streamed down her face, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she had given her all. As the last note hung in the air, the audience erupted into applause. Judges scribbled notes furiously, their expressions unreadable. Lucy bowed quickly and hurried off stage, her legs shaking. For the next hour, she waited anxiously alongside the other contestants, replaying her performance in her mind. Had she done enough? Would the judges see her passion? Finally, the results were announced. Third place went to a boy playing the piano. Second place was awarded to a girl with a cello. Then came the moment Lucy dreaded and dreamed of simultaneously. And the winner of this year's Young Musicians competition is Lucy Miller. For a moment, Lucy couldn't believe what she had heard. Her name echoed through the auditorium as the crowd cheered wildly. Dazed, she walked back onto the stage to receive her trophy, her hands trembling as she held it aloft. Cameras flashed, capturing the scene. But all Lucy could think about was how far she had come. From a dusty old violin case outside a thrift store to this incredible moment. That night, As she lay in bed clutching the trophy, Lucy realized something important. Winning wasn't just about proving herself, it was about gratitude. Gratitude for her family, her mentor, and the community that believed in her when she doubted herself. And as she drifted off to sleep, she knew this was only the beginning of her journey. Winning the competition changed Lucy's life in ways she never expected. The trophy sat proudly on the shelf in their small apartment, a constant reminder of how far she had come. But more than the shiny award, it was the opportunities that followed that truly amazed her. Within days, Lucy's story began to spread. A local newspaper wrote an article about her journey, from finding an old violin at a thrift store to winning a citywide competition. The headline read, "From humble beginnings to musical triumph, meet Lucy Miller." The article caught the attention of many people, including music teachers, philanthropists, and even strangers who were inspired by her story. One of these strangers was a woman named Mrs. Bennett, a retired musician who ran a foundation supporting young artists. After reading the article, Mrs. Bennett reached out to Lucy's school and arranged a meeting with her family. When they met, Mrs. Bennett wasted no time getting to the point. "Lucy," she said warmly, "your talent is extraordinary, and I want to help you continue growing as a musician. My foundation sponsors scholarships for gifted children to attend top music schools. I'd like to offer you one of those scholarships." Lucy's jaw dropped. Her parents exchanged stunned looks, unsure if they had heard correctly. "Are you serious?" Lucy's mother asked, her voice trembling. "We could never afford something like that on our own." Mrs. Bennett nodded. "That's why we exist, to make dreams possible for kids like Lucy. She has potential, and with the right training, there's no telling how far she can go." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Lucy's father shook Mrs. Bennett's hand firmly. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "This means everything to us." The scholarship covered tuition, books, and other expenses at a prestigious arts academy. It also provided funding for private lessons with renowned instructors. For Lucy, this felt like stepping into a whole new world. The academy was located downtown, in a sleek building filled with practice rooms, concert halls, and students who shared her passion for music. On her first day, Lucy walked through the doors feeling both excited and intimidated. Everyone seemed so confident, so polished. Would she fit in? Her fears melted away when she met her new teacher, Mr. Adler, a kind man with a deep love for teaching. He immediately put her at ease, encouraging her to focus on her strengths rather than compare herself to others. "Every musician has their own path," he told her during their first lesson. "Your job is to find yours." Under Mr. Adler's guidance, Lucy's skills improved rapidly. She learned advanced techniques, explored different styles of music, and discovered composers she had never heard of before. Each day brought new challenges, but also new joys. For the first time, Lucy felt like she belonged somewhere, like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Meanwhile, Harold continued to play an important role in Lucy's life. Though she no longer needed weekly lessons from him, they still met regularly at the park to talk about music and life. Harold reminded her to stay grounded even as her star began to rise. "Remember where you came from," he often said. "Never forget the struggles that shaped you." Lucy took his words to heart. Despite her growing success, she remained humble and grateful. Whenever she performed at school recitals or community events, she dedicated her pieces to the people who had supported her along the way, her parents, her neighbors, and especially Harold. Her performances became a way of giving back, of showing others that anything was possible with hard work and determination. As months turned into years, Lucy's reputation grew. She started receiving invitations to perform at local concerts, charity events, and even weddings. Each performance was a chance to share her gift with the world, and Lucy poured her heart into every note. She loved seeing the way music touched people, the smiles, the tears, the applause. It reminded her why she had fallen in love with the violin in the first place. One evening, after a particularly moving performance at a community center, a man approached Lucy with a business card. "My name is Mr. Thompson," he said. "I'm a talent agent, and I think you have real potential. If you're interested, I'd love to help you take your career to the next level. Lucy hesitated. Becoming a professional musician had always been a distant dream, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. But Mr. Thompson reassured her that he would guide her every step of the way. You don't have to decide right now, he said. Just think about it. When Lucy told her family about the offer, they encouraged her to consider it carefully. This is your life, sweetheart, her mother said. Whatever you choose, we'll support you. After much thought, Lucy decided to give it a try. With Mr. Thompson's help, she began booking gigs at larger venues and recording demos to send to record labels. It was a daunting process full of uncertainty and hard work, but Lucy embraced it with the same determination she had shown since the beginning. Her big break came when a well-known orchestra invited her to perform as a guest soloist. The concert was held in a grand hall packed with hundreds of people, including critics and industry professionals. As Lucy stepped onto the stage, her heart raced. This was her chance to prove herself on a bigger platform. Taking a deep breath, she raised her violin and began to play. The audience was spellbound. Every note resonated with emotion, telling the story of Lucy's journey, from the quiet girl in a rundown apartment to the confident musician standing before them. By the end of the piece, the room erupted into thunderous applause. Critics praised her performance, calling it breathtaking and unforgettable. Offers poured in afterward from orchestras, festivals, and even international tours. Despite her rising fame, Lucy stayed true to herself. She visited her old neighborhood whenever she could, bringing gifts for her neighbors and checking in on Harold. She also started a foundation of her own, aimed at providing musical instruments and lessons to children from low-income families. Inspired by the kindness she had received, Lucy wanted to pay it forward. Years later, as Lucy stood on stages around the world, performing for thousands of people, she often thought back to that dusty violin case outside the thrift store. It had been the start of everything, a symbol of hope, resilience, and endless possibility. Through music, Lucy had found not only her voice but also her purpose, and though her journey had taken her far from home, she knew she would always carry a piece of her roots with her, woven into every melody she played. As Lucy's career blossomed, her life became a whirlwind of rehearsals, performances, and travel. She played in grand concert halls with towering ceilings and sparkling chandeliers, places that felt worlds away from the small park bench where she once practiced with Harold. Yet no matter how far she traveled or how large the crowds grew, Lucy never forgot the people who had helped her along the way. Her heart remained tied to her roots, to the community that had believed in her when she doubted herself. One crisp autumn morning, as Lucy prepared for a performance in New York City, she received an unexpected phone call. It was Emily Dawson, the social worker who had organized the fundraiser years ago to help Lucy buy her first proper violin. Emily sounded both excited and nervous as she spoke. "Lucy, I hope you don't mind me reaching out like this, but there's something important I need to tell you." "Of course not," Lucy replied warmly. "What is it?" "It's about Harold," Emily said softly. "He's been feeling unwell lately and, well, I think he'd love to see you. He talks about you all the time, you know. You're his greatest source of pride." Lucy's chest tightened at the news. Over the past few years, Harold had become more than just a mentor. He was family. She made plans immediately to visit him after her performance in New York. The thought of losing him filled her with sadness, but also determination. She wanted to thank him one last time for everything he had done for her. When Lucy arrived at Harold's modest home later that week, she found him sitting in his favorite armchair by the window. His hair had turned completely gray and his hands trembled slightly as he held a cup of tea, but his eyes lit up the moment he saw her. "Lucy," he exclaimed, his voice weak but full of warmth. "Look at you, all grown up and making music for the world." Lucy knelt beside him, taking his frail hand in hers. "I wouldn't be here without you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You believed in me when no one else did. You taught me everything." Harold chuckled softly. "Nonsense, you did the hard work, I just gave you a little push." They spent hours talking, reminiscing about their lessons in the park and the early days of Lucy's journey. Harold listened intently as Lucy shared stories from her recent performances, laughing at her descriptions of nervous audiences and demanding conductors. When the conversation turned quieter, Lucy took out her violin and began to play. She chose one of the first pieces Harold had taught her, a simple yet heartfelt melody. As the music filled the room, tears glistened in Harold's eyes. "You've come so far," he whispered when she finished. "I'm so proud of you." Those words meant more to Lucy than any applause or accolade. They reminded her why she had started playing the violin in the first place, not for fame or fortune, but because it brought joy to others. That night, as she left Harold's house, Lucy promised herself to keep honoring his legacy by inspiring others through her music. A few months later, Lucy returned to Chicago for a special performance at the city's largest theater. The event was organized to raise funds for her foundation, which provided musical instruments and lessons to children from low-income families. Hundreds of people attended, including many familiar faces from her neighborhood. Mr. Carter, the elderly man who fed pigeons outside the hardware store, sat near the front row, smiling proudly. Mrs. Dawson brought her young daughter, who clapped enthusiastically after every piece. During the intermission, Lucy stepped backstage to catch her breath. She glanced at the program and noticed a handwritten note tucked inside. It read, "To Lucy, my brave girl, keep shining. Love, Harold." Her throat tightened as she realized Harold must have written it before passing away earlier that month. Though his death had left a void in her life, his note filled her with strength. She wiped away a tear and returned to the stage, ready to finish the concert with even more passion than before. The final piece she performed was a tribute to Harold, a slow, mournful melody that gradually built into a triumphant crescendo. As she played, images of her journey flashed through her mind. The thrift store violin, the talent show, the citywide competition, and all the moments in between. By the end, the audience rose to their feet, cheering and applauding. Many wiped away tears moved by the depth of emotion in her music. After the performance, Lucy stayed late to greet attendees and sign programs. A young boy approached her shyly, clutching a battered guitar case. "I want to learn to play like you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lucy knelt down to his level, smiling gently. "You can do it," she told him. "It won't always be easy, but if you practice and believe in yourself, anything is possible. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Ask for help when you need it." The boy nodded, his eyes wide with wonder. Watching him walk away, Lucy felt a surge of hope. She knew that somewhere out there were countless other kids like her, kids with big dreams and limited resources. Through her foundation, she hoped to give them the same opportunities she had been given, to show them that music could change lives. In the years that followed, Lucy continued to perform around the world, but she always made time for her foundation. She visited schools, hosted workshops, and delivered speeches about the power of perseverance and creativity. Her message was simple. Everyone has a gift, and with support and determination, they can turn that gift into something extraordinary. One summer, Lucy organized a free music camp for children in underserved communities. Dozens of kids signed up, eager to try their hand at instruments they had only ever seen in pictures. Among them was a quiet 10-year-old girl named Mia, who reminded Lucy of herself. Mia struggled at first, fumbling with the keys of a donated piano, but she refused to give up. Lucy watched her progress over the weeks, marveling at her resilience. On the last day of camp, Mia stood nervously on a makeshift stage, preparing to play a short piece for her peers. Her hands shook as she placed them on the keyboard, but when she began to play, her fear melted away. The melody was simple but beautiful, earning applause from the crowd. Later, as Mia thanked Lucy for believing in her, Lucy felt a lump rise in her throat. In that moment, she realized she wasn't just carrying Harold's legacy, she was creating a new one child at a time. Though Lucy's life was busier than ever, she made sure to carve out moments for herself. On quiet evenings, she would sit by her apartment window, playing her violin softly as the city lights twinkled below. These private concerts were for no one but her, a chance to reconnect with the music that had saved her. Sometimes she imagined Harold listening from somewhere far away, nodding approvingly at each note. Lucy often reflected on how much her life had changed since finding that old violin case. Back then she had been a shy, uncertain girl with nothing but a dream. Now she was a celebrated musician, using her talent to inspire others. But success hadn't changed who she was at her core. She was still Lucy Miller, the girl who believed in magic, in second chances, and in the power of kindness. And so, whether she was standing on a world-famous stage or teaching a child how to hold a bow, Lucy carried her story with her. It was a story of struggle and triumph, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It was a reminder that sometimes, all it takes is one spark, one dusty violin case, one patient teacher, one act of generosity, to light a fire that changes everything. Years passed, and Lucy Miller's name became synonymous with hope and resilience. She was no longer just a musician. She was a symbol of what could be achieved against all odds. Her concerts sold out months in advance. Her foundation grew to reach thousands of children, and her story inspired countless others. Yet, despite her fame, Lucy remained grounded. Every note she played carried the weight of her journey, the struggles, the kindness of strangers, and the unwavering belief that music could change lives. One crisp spring morning, Lucy stood backstage at Carnegie Hall, one of the most prestigious venues in the world. It was a dream she had never dared to imagine as a child. Yet here she was, about to perform for an audience filled with renowned musicians, critics, and fans. As she adjusted her violin under the bright lights, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. In her mind, she pictured Harold sitting in the front row, his kind face smiling up at her. She thought of her parents, who had sacrificed so much to give her a chance. And she thought of all the children she had met through her foundation, each carrying their own dreams in fragile hands. When the conductor signaled for her to begin, Lucy raised her bow and let the music flow. The piece she had chosen was a blend of classical elegance and raw emotion, a reflection of her life. Each note told a chapter of her story, the loneliness of her childhood, the joy of discovering music, the fear of failure, and the triumph of perseverance. By the time she reached the final chord, tears glistened in her eyes, and the audience erupted into thunderous applause. People rose to their feet, cheering and clapping long after the last note faded into silence. After the performance, Lucy attended a reception where admirers lined up to congratulate her. Among them was a young woman named Clara, holding a small, worn-out violin case. Clara introduced herself shyly, explaining that she had been one of the first recipients of Lucy's foundation years ago. "You changed my life," Clara said, her voice trembling. "Because of you, I learned to play. Now I teach music to kids in my neighborhood." Lucy felt a lump rise in her throat. This was why she did what she did, not for awards or recognition, but to create ripples of hope that would spread far beyond her reach. She hugged Clara tightly, promising to stay in touch and support her work however she could. As the years went on, Lucy began to focus more on mentoring young musicians. She traveled less, choosing instead to spend time nurturing talent closer to home. Her apartment became a sanctuary for aspiring artists, filled with laughter, practice sessions, and late-night conversations about life and music. One evening, while helping a teenage boy fine-tune his technique, Lucy realized something profound. She wasn't just teaching these kids how to play instruments. She was showing them how to believe in themselves, how to turn fear into courage, and how to find beauty even in the hardest moments. Her foundation expanded its programs, offering not only lessons but also scholarships, mentorship opportunities, and annual showcases where young musicians could perform alongside professionals. These events drew large crowds, including families, educators, and philanthropists eager to support the next generation of artists. At one such showcase, a 12-year-old girl named Sophie stole the show with her rendition of a Bach concerto. Afterward, Lucy pulled Sophie aside and handed her a handwritten note. "Never stop believing in yourself," it read. "You have a gift and the world needs to hear it." Sophie beamed, clutching the note like a treasure. For Lucy, seeing the spark of confidence in Sophie's eyes was worth more than any standing ovation. She knew that Sophie, like so many others, would carry this moment with her for the rest of her life. Despite her success, Lucy faced challenges too. There were days when self-doubt crept in, whispering that she wasn't good enough or that she didn't deserve the accolades. On those days, she returned to the park where it all began, the same bench where Harold had taught her to hold a bow, for the first time. Sitting there, surrounded by the sounds of nature and distant city traffic, she reminded herself of how far she had come. She remembered the dusty violin case, the broken strings, and the shaky notes that once seemed impossible to master. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that every great journey starts with a single step. One summer, Lucy decided to organize a special tribute concert in honor of Harold. She invited musicians from all over the country, some famous, some unknown, to join her in celebrating his legacy. The event was held outdoors in the very park where Harold had spent countless Saturdays teaching her. Hundreds of people attended, bringing blankets and picnic baskets to enjoy the music under the stars. During the concert, Lucy performed a piece she had composed herself, titled "The Park Bench." It was a gentle, nostalgic melody that captured the essence of her friendship with Harold. As she played, she imagined him sitting beside her, nodding along to the rhythm. When the final note lingered in the air, the crowd fell silent for a moment, before erupting into applause. Many wiped away tears moved by the depth of emotion in her music. After the concert, Lucy announced the launch of a new initiative within her foundation, the Harold Mentorship Program. The program paired experienced musicians with underserved youth, providing them with guidance, encouragement, and access to resources. "Harold taught me that music is about connection," Lucy said during her speech. "It's about sharing your heart with the world. Through this program, we can keep his spirit alive by helping others discover their own voices." In her later years, Lucy slowed down, allowing herself to savor the quieter moments. She wrote a memoir, detailing her journey from a struggling child to an internationally acclaimed musician. The book became a bestseller, inspiring readers around the globe. She also started hosting intimate concerts in her hometown, inviting neighbors and friends to gather in her living room for evenings of music and storytelling. These gatherings reminded her of the simplicity and beauty of her early days with Harold. One evening, as she played a soft lullaby for a group of wide-eyed children, Lucy felt a sense of peace wash over her. She realized that her purpose had always been clear: to use her gift to uplift others. Whether through a single note or a lifetime of melodies, she had touched lives in ways she might never fully understand. When Lucy passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 82, the world mourned the loss of a remarkable woman. Tributes poured in from musicians, teachers, students, and fans, all sharing stories of how she had impacted their lives. Her foundation continued to thrive, carrying forward her mission of making music accessible to everyone. Today, in cities and towns across America, children pick up violins, guitars, and pianos, dreaming of the day they'll create something beautiful. Some of them will face hardships just as Lucy once did. But thanks to her example, they'll know that even the smallest spark can ignite a lifetime of change. And perhaps, in their darkest moments, they'll hear her voice whispering, "Keep playing, keep believing you are capable of greatness."